Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku and UA Students Reacts to Different Timelines movie. Before we start, please go support deadsShadow for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made, there will be some mistaken characters' gender, but of course Deku is a male. Presentation. Now we find ourselves in a completely dark place where we could only see an unconscious green-haired man who was slowly waking up. Izuku? Where am I? Somewhat bewildered noticing the completely black place. You are in a place very far from home, Izuku. Izuku? Hey. Who's there? He said, somewhat scared, getting up to get into a fighting stance. Who am I? Well, it's a bit complicated to say, I don't even know. Izuku? What? But where am I? What is this place? He said, fearing that a villain had kidnapped him. Everything in its time, Midoriya, but I will answer you where you are. Almost in an instant the whole place shone. Izuku covered his eyes to avoid being blinded by the glare to see how the sky now looked, full of stars and galaxies. Izuku? What is this place? He said, amazed at how beautiful the view was. This place, Izuku, is the center of the universe, a place far from space and time itself, where each reality comes together to form the multiverse. Izuku? The multiverse? He said, stuttering and nervous. Yes, Izuku, the multiverse. I am just one of thousands who watch over the different realities and, well, a god in some way, said the omnipresent voice. Izuku? A god? Did I die? He said, scared, but a laugh confused him. You're not dead, I just want to show you and everyone you know how big the universe is. Izuku? I see, but it's only me here, he said, confused. Well, right now I'm talking to everyone else separately and I'm telling them the same thing. That's easier for you. Izuku? I understand, but where are you? And what's your name? He said, searching with his eyes for the origin of the voice. Suddenly there was only silence followed by a tremor, the ground cracked and Izuku fell silent while screaming until he slowly went down to the ground, which looked like wood. When he got up he noticed his friends, Class B, teachers, his mother, the big three, Koda and Eri, some heroes and heroines, but what scared and alarmed him were the villains. All the heroes and villains saw each other and prepared for a war, but they noticed something, and that was that no one could activate their quirk. Katsuki. You. I'll kill you all, shine. He shouted while trying to activate his quirk. Hiroshima. Guys, I don't feel my quirk, he said, terrified, while everyone looked at All For One, who had a serious look. Afo? I don't understand this, where are my powers? He said furiously when he noticed that he no longer had any powers. Everyone tensed when they heard footsteps which came closer until they saw what seemed like a strange shadow which watched them calmly. Nezu. I suppose you are the one responsible for no one being able to use their quirks, right? He asked with a smile while trying to process everything he had heard about the universe. That's correct, you all know why you're here, don't you? Some nodded while others just said nothing. Mina. Excuse me, sir, but what is your name? Everyone saw the shadow which began to shine a few seconds later. Everyone was surprised by its shape, it looked like a 16 or 17-year-old boy. You can call me Shadow, he said calmly, while everyone was surprised when they saw what was behind him was a kind of giant mirror the size of a movie screen next to several crystals of blue and green tones on its sides. And it's time for you to see how big your reality is. It gave a snap and crystals shaped like chairs came out of the ground. Shadow. Shall we begin? Hello everyone, well, I bring this new story since I have read many stories of this type and I wanted to see how it would turn out. If I tried to do it. Of course, this also has a hidden purpose that I will show you later. So I hope you like it. The world without the. Everyone was surprised by what they had just heard and seen. A kind of god was about to show them a lot of realities similar to theirs, but with changes that ranged from slight to a completely different story. Shadow. Well, would you like to start? He said while walking calmly until he reached the front of the giant mirror. Everyone just stayed silent until a little white-haired girl raised her hand. Eri. What are we going to see, Mr. Shadow? She said somewhat nervously, seeing the being. Shadow. Haha, well, little one, we will see a somewhat sad universe. Everyone was confused by that. Well, you will understand when you see it. He snaps his fingers and the mirror begins to shine until it shows a green-haired man walking under a tunnel. Izuku. That is it, me? He was surprised to see himself but recognized the tunnel and got nervous. That tunnel was that time he saw the green-haired boy out of the corner of his eye. In the universe. Izuku. I'm not going to give up no matter what Kaken says. I'll be a hero, if only I have to be strong like Almight. He started to laugh in an exaggerated way, but stopped when he heard something. Dylan. Your body will be used to escape. Izuku was alarmed when he saw a kind of mud. Izuku. And no way. He's a villain. I have to get out of here. He starts to run, but the villain manages to catch him and suffocate him. Inko. Oh no, son, is that what happened to you? She said, scared by what she saw. Izuku. Well yes, but I thought he said it would be a different world. Everyone looks at Shadow who just sighs. Shadow. And it is look carefully Izuku, everyone sees the screen again and is alarmed by what they saw. Villain. Don't worry, you'll almost feel nothing after that, a manhole cover flies off, scaring the villain, it can't be. It's already here. Almight. Everything's okay. Why? Because I'm here. He shouts, sending a large stream of air towards the villain, causing him to release Izuku. Foe. That stupid phrase really has me fed up, he said while the villains agreed with him. Hiroshima. That's great. I knew Izubro would get through that problem. Uraraka. I'm glad Deku-kun is okay, she said relieved as the other students and heroes congratulated All Might for saving him. Izuku. Thank you very much All Might, said Izuku smiling. Don't worry, that's what a shonen hero does, he said smiling, but a sigh from Shadow causes them to look at the screen. Shadow. Like I said, a different world from yours, he said while seeing the astonished faces of the heroes and the smiles of the villains. Shigaraki. Is it possible? A grim smile formed on his face, hahaha, there is my ideal world. All Might was paralyzed by what he saw. There was the lifeless body of a young man who was hugging a notebook tightly, while a few tears remained on his cold cheeks. No one could see it, no one knew what consequences what happened in those few seconds would bring to the world, how they had lost a savior. Eri. Dad. Please don't go. She was crying next to Kota and Inko, who were hugging the green-haired boy who only responded with a sad face. Ida. Midoriya this, he saw how Uraraka had tears in her eyes and her other companions were paralyzed by what happened to their companion. Tatsuki. He didn't say anything, he just stood in silence watching the scene with his eyes wide open, noticing the burnt notebook in the arms of the green-haired corpse, Deku. Foe. Haha, tell me how it feels to fail again. All Might, you couldn't save your teacher or your disciple, you are a disgrace, hahaha. All Might just looked down. Days passed since that key point in history. A green-haired woman had taken her own life after losing her reason for living, her only son. And that was only the beginning of the end. Everyone in the room was watching two green-haired boys who were hugging each other and crying, accompanied by two children. The Sawa world without him, he saw the screen again. Months passed and the test to enter the UA had arrived, filling those with hope who dreamed of being heroes, but… Uraraka. Help please. He is alone crying seeing a piece of rubble falling in his direction. Mommy, daddy, sorry I failed. The robot crushes her, causing them to stop a test, and everyone is terrified seeing the scene. No one could do anything, or could they? It didn't really matter anymore after that. The UA received a lot of criticism and a lawsuit from the young woman's family, damaging the institution's reputation. Days passed and classes had begun. Everything was normal, since no one knew the deceased candidate. Then something happened, the incident at the USJ. Shigaraki. Maybe if we kill some of his students he'll get revenge, don't you think, Kurogiri? He quickly ran towards an unprotected frog girl and disintegrated her head, leaving a purple-haired boy horrified and killed after her. That day the class knew the hell that being a hero really is. That day, 2 students died and a blonde student was seriously injured while helping All Might, causing him to lose an arm. Mineta. Thank you for existing, Midoriya, thank you. He was crying at the feet of the kneeling green-haired boy. Asui. Thank you, Midoriya. Jiro said he was at his side with a sincere smile, making the green-haired boy blush. Uraraka. Yes, Deku-kun, you are my hero, she said the same way as Asui. Bitsuki. An arm, he looked at his right hand with a lost look. Bitsuki. Son, she gave him a hug which to her surprise he reciprocated. After that unpleasant incident, some students decided to leave the UA. The classroom was now an empty place with just a few students. They had to merge both classes because of that. Just when everything seemed to be looking up after the sports festival, fate struck again. The death of Iida Tenya at the hands of the hero killer Stein. Without him the family left the agency in oblivion and his older brother Tensei passed away. Iida. Midoriya, thank you. This one had his head on the floor. Izuku just told him not to worry about it under Nezu's gaze. Nezu. UA falling into chaos, that is horrible, he said, looking at the screen, worried. Shigaraki. It's better than I thought, hahaha, that world is beautiful, he said while laughing uncontrollably. And worst of all. The camp, the worst incident of all in that place. Shoji died and Tokoyami and Bakugo were kidnapped along with a ragdoll heroine. Several students and teachers died that day. Kota Izumi and his aunt were some of the deceased, along with Todoroki Shoto, who, when he refused to use his fire side, was torn to pieces. It was hell the villains had won. The AU suffered the worst lawsuit of all, and although they promised to rescue the hostages, they were only insulted and humiliated. The brown-haired woman could be seen tearfully hugging a green-haired boy with horns on his cap, who couldn't process anything. Todoroki. Midoriya said, calling the green-haired boy who was a little blushing from the hug from the heroine Mandalay and Pixie Bob, who joined later. Izuku. Yes, Todoroki. he said somewhat nervously because of the bicolor's gaze. Todoroki. Thank you, giving him a handshake which he reciprocated. And the incident that would bring fear and suffering to all of Japan and the world. The death of the symbol of peace. Along with that of other heroes and students who wanted to rescue their classmates, dying in the process. Hope fell and fell, not even Almight's successor Lemillion could do anything about it, dying alongside his master on a mission to wipe out a Yakuza group. The Yakuzas ruled the underworld under the orders of All for One. Everything simply went to hell, and One for All fell along with its bearer that day. The UA was shut down along with a little green-haired boy's dream of becoming a hero. An event that brings with it unexpected events, but with the same ending: chaos. Now tell me, didn't you see this coming? Sobbing was all that could be heard in the room on the hero's side and laughter on the villain's side. Toga. Did we win? She said, looking at Davi, who just nodded with a smile. Yes. She said, shouting in Comper's ear. Muscular. It's the best I've seen, it was phenomenal. Twice. It was great, it was horrible, screams in his seat. Afo. You see, All Might, no matter what you failed, your teacher would be very disappointed in you, even though she died weak just like you. Laugh, seeing All Might's face full of anger and rage. This little moment of my life is called happiness, hahaha. Shigaraki. Kurogiri brings the victory cake. Kurogiri just reminded him that he couldn't. Damn well, what does it matter, we win. All the villains celebrate in front of the heroes who had their eyes lowered. Mirio. I died and I couldn't even save Eri. He had his gaze lowered while clenching his fists in frustration, being comforted by Tamaki and Mijire. Zero. A world without Midoriya is horrible, friends, he said nervously because of everything he saw. Hiroshima. Yes, Izubro is very important, I can't believe the villains will win, he said with his eyes lowered. Asawa. He just saw everything seriously. Monoma. That useless class A can't be that important, let's just go. He couldn't finish because Kendo left him unconscious. Kendo. Please excuse him, he said, leaving him lying on a chair. Shadow. Well, that's all for today, I hope you liked it, vote or not, it's up to you as always, tell me if you liked it and see you in the next universe. Bye. This wonderful world. All the heroes were still somewhat dejected by the previous universe, while the villains were in a good mood. Toga. And tell me, Shadow, what are we going to see today? Will it be one with a lot of blood? She said normally, then had a crazy smile when she said the last thing. Shigaraki. You know, not even your crazy sadistic attitude will take away my good mood, so tell me, Shadow, what do you have for us? He said in a resting position with a calm smile. Shadow. Well, since the previous universe was quite tragic, he saw the heroes' gloomy faces, this will be something funny, does that seem okay to you? He saw how some were considering it. Momo. I think it would be best to relax the atmosphere, don't you think, guys? She said, hoping to calm things down. Mina. Yes. You're right, I want to see something really fun. She said, trying to lighten the mood. Duru. Yes, me too. Come on, I want to see. He's alone, supporting his friend. Eri. I also want to see something fun, she said more calmly next to Izuku, who had a smile. Koda. I didn't like the last universe at all, he said, annoyed while looking at his aunt. Twice. That kid doesn't appreciate art. I didn't like it either, it was disgusting. Shadow. Well then, let's see a somewhat peculiar universe, he said, so the mirror shines brightly. In the universe. Hello. I'm Izuku Midoriya, and this is the story of how I became the #1 hero and defeated evil. Whoever fooled me in this place, how much more am I going to get than go crazy? And all because of that stupid, useless goddess. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be in this situation. The green-haired man could be seen screaming like crazy while escaping from a bunch of giant toads intent on swallowing him. Everyone in the room had a poker face at the strange scene they were witnessing. Ida. What does Midoriya mean by goddess? And why are there such big toads? He said, moving his arms like only he knows how. Shadow. Well, in that world there is no Quirk, this surprised everyone. Enki. So those toads are that size. He said nervously about the toads. Itsuki. TSK, they sure are some damn weaklings, and the stupid nerd is even weaker. He said while laughing at the green-haired boy's scared face. Hiroshima. And Bakugo came back, he said only to sigh and laugh a little. Izuku. But what did my other self mean by useless goddess? He said, confused. Shadow. Oh my friend, I don't want to ruin the surprise, he said with a tense eye. Now you could see the green-haired boy running in circles being followed by the toads, except for one who was busy with another prey. Ijire Wuya. Izuku, help me. She said she is being eaten by a toad. Izuku. Help you if you're perfectly entertaining that toad, damn, I need more bait, I mean help. He just jumped at the toad, giving it a cut and killing it to simply continue running in circles. Mijire. You couldn't help me before. Hump, silly Deku, how disgusting. She hears a breath and turns pale, turning around slowly until she sees a giant toad in front of her, Izu. She was interrupted because she was eaten by the toad. Izuku? It's a joke. It can't be more useless. This one had a twitch in his eye and then ran to attack him. Mirio. Ha 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 ha. He was just laughing uncontrollably while Najire was just very red with embarrassment. Tamaki. I never thought I'd seen Najire like that, she said while laughing slightly at her friend's face in that universe. Kirishima. Izubro, that's not the way to think, it's not manly of you, he said, shaking his head in disapproval. Ida. It's true, Midoriya shouldn't treat Najire-senpai like that, he said the same way as Kirishima. Izuku. I'm sorry Najire-senpai, he said very sorry. Najire HMP she's alone, apparently upset. The Y laughter failing the mission. Izuku. We need more people in our party if we want to finish that mission and have enough money to get out of that stable, and you're not even listening to me, he said, hitting his face against the table when he saw Najire on top of a table throwing water and entertaining several people. Najire. That's right. Worship the great goddess Najire. She said proudly and sanctimoniously while drinking a bottle of wine. Izuku. And it all falls on my shoulders again, he sighs as he starts writing on a piece of paper, done. With this I think we can get good companions. He said happily about the announcement and stood up and walked with the intention of putting it, but a blue-haired girl ends up falling on top of him. Najire. Be more careful Deku, you almost hurt me, thank goodness you were there to prevent me from falling. The leaf fell on her face, and she read it, This is wrong, I am a great archpriest of great power, we do not need other people, she said with a smile to take another sip of wine. Izuku. What good are you if you only damage undead and nothing else? Basically your magic only affects those monsters and everyone else is immune to your attacks. He said throwing it to the other side, and stop buying that garbage don't you see we don't have money. He said grabbing the bottle and throwing it against the wall angrily. Najire. Nuo. My baby. You're bad Izukito. Waya, he is alone and started to throw a tantrum in the middle of the guild. Izuku. Noticing the disapproving looks of the guild people, hey, it's not what it seems. He sees Najire, who instantly sticks her tongue out at him and laughs, then continues with her tantrum, Wide. The people in the room only gave encouragement to Izuku, even the villains who felt sorry for the green-haired boy's fate at the hands of the blue-haired girl. Hiroshima. Well I didn't say anything, that Izubro is right, he said sadly. Todoroki. No wonder he said she's useless, he only saw the green-haired boy's misfortunes. Iri. Excuse me. So Najire is a goddess. Everyone looks at Shadow. Shadow. That's right, Najire in that universe is the goddess of water, and something more, everyone is surprised by that, but she is completely useless as you can see. Tamaki. But there is Najire, if she is good for something, Najire hoped for what her friend would say, as bait for the monsters. Mirio. Ha 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 I can't believe you said that Tamaki, I thought about it, but I didn't dare say it. Ha ha ha, this one just laughs at how stupid his friend was in that universe. Najire. He was alone in a corner with a depressing aura, saying things about friends who don't support their friends. Izuku. Don't worry, Najire-senpai. I know that you are very helpful for my version of that universe, he said while smiling warmly, causing a small blush in the blue-haired girl. Najire. Thanks Izuku, she said looking away. Asawa. Looking at Najire with his eyes half closed, I must be prepared, he just puts on a black cap with some letters and some dark glasses. Izuku. Whatever. I'll go put up a notice to see if anyone wants to join us and beg anyone who isn't a complete useless person like this chick, he thought with a blank stare as he saw Najire drinking more wine while doing party tricks. Izuku. Okay, let's go, Izuku, think positive. I don't think anyone more useless than her will come, he puts up a sign with a smile and sits back down. What he didn't notice was that Najire took it down and put up one made with crayons. Najire. Perfect. That Deku will surely like it. It's much prettier and was made by a high-class goddess. She thought with a smile, then began to drink wine until she vomited. A day goes by and still no one has arrived for his request. Izuku. I don't understand why no one wants to join our party, specify our skills and levels, in addition to our strengths as a team, maybe I missed something, he began to murmur under the gaze of other guild members, along with a bored Najire, without noticing the person in front of him. She was a bit nervous seeing how the green-haired man was muttering at high speed. Najire. Sorry, he's always so weird, she approaches him, when it comes to me he's got a screw loose, she said with a mocking laugh. Okay. Well, I came to ask if you're still looking for team members. He said, showing the poorly made sign. Najire. Of course. Surely you heard about me and decided to join me since you're a goddess, right? She said with a big smile. Izuku. Well, I'll have to accommodate him. He notices the girl in front of him with an uncomfortable expression at having the blue-haired girl nearby. Excuse me, but who are you? He said confused. Who am I, you ask? She said with a big smile as she began to make a strange pose, because I am a user of the most powerful destructive magic in this and all worlds. She made another strange pose, daughter of the Crimson Wizards Machiroi and Takir the Great Archmage Uraraka, she said making a dramatic pose while having a big smile that adorned her face. Eerie. I look really cool. I must be really strong to help Dad, she said happily while Izuku just smiled at her. Mirio. I have no words, just one, everyone looks at him, Chunin, Tamaki just nodded quickly. Koda. First of all, what kind of name is that? It seems like when they wrote it, they just took Eri and called her weird, she said she was confused by the ugly name. Mineta. Although it doesn't look very developed, it's not bad at all, he said looking at and detailing the girl's figure, nothing more, this one is sent flying by a combined blow from Mirio and Izuku. Katsuki. Explosive magic, ha. Nothing is stronger than my explosions. He said, smiling arrogantly. Shigaraki. Sensei thinks the Gigantomachia could easily kill this mentally retarded person, right? Afo just nods making Katsuki tremble. Jiro. Nobody finds the clothes he's wearing strange, he said, looking at the hat and the staff. Enki. As she said, she's a magician, it's not obvious, he said with a mocking laugh only to be poked in the eyes. Shadow. Well, that's all for today, I hope you liked it, vote and comment. I. The Punisher. Everyone could be seen talking about the previous universe. Hiroshima. It was quite strange, but I liked it, he said with a smile, so his friends would support him. Uraraka. Although we couldn't see what else happened next, she said somewhat discouraged. Ida. It's Midoriya, he sure did very well, he said moving his hands robotically. Eri. Dad, I'll become strong to help you, I promise. She said determinedly while Izuku just smiled nervously. He was about to speak but was interrupted. Koda. I will also become strong like you, Mr. Izuku, and I will help him. He said the same way as Eri. Mina. But how adorable, she said moving in her chair. Shadow. Well, since you've seen that universe it's time for a bloodier one, that made all the heroes tense. Toga. Yes. My time has come. She said happily. Shigaraki. Oh yeah, if it's another universe like the first one then I'm ready, he said happily along with the other villains, but a laugh made them tense. Shadow. Well, I didn't say bloody for them, he said smiling to point at the villains, but for you, the villains just had a bad feeling. In the universe. I really don't remember the last time I had a break in my life, not since they took away everything I loved. The Shadow could be seen jumping from roof to roof in a rather hurried manner. Stein. Let's go. Let's go. I'm almost there. He said alarmed while increasing speed, but heard a gunshot. Suddenly he screamed in pain and lost his balance, causing him to fall hard on some fire stairs and then fall into a garbage can, tipping it over. Stein. Damn kids, he tries to get up but realizes that one leg is broken and the other has a bullet wound. Everyone in the room was surprised. Stein. What the hell happened to me? He said alarmed and confused. Ida. He didn't say anything, he just remained silent. Ha ha ha. Who was the one speaking at the beginning? He said worriedly, looking at the screen. Shadow. The same one who was chazzing him, he said seriously. Afo. I wonder who was chazzing him, everyone saw him and then saw the screen. Stein, why are you doing this? This wouldn't make you a hero. He screams while trying to escape only for a knife to bury itself in his hand, causing him to scream, I had nothing to do with it. I only look for false heroes. Understand. He screams in desperation looking at a black hair in the shadows. Izuku. I know, Stein is paralyzed when he sees it, but still you kill innocent people. He walked slowly until he was in front of Stein who was trying to back away, besides you were there, he sees a piece of glass and picks it up. All that was heard were the screams of pain from a man who had made a very bad decision and was paying for it. Midoriya Shonen. Why did you do that? He was alarmed as were other heroes who looked at the green-haired boy with caution. Inko. My son became a rebel. He was alone crying while Izuku apologized. Stein. And to think that I considered you a true hero, he said nervously, quite far from the green-haired man. Ida. Why did Midoriya kill him? Everyone saw Ida's serious look worrying his friends. Shadow. I'll tell you later, he said seriously while looking at a worried Izuku. The black-haired man could be seen walking with a serious look to an alley at the end of which there was a door with a muscular man guarding it. Man. Name and ID. He said seriously. Izuku. Get out of my way, he said seriously. Man. Name and ID. He said while taking out a gun. Izuku. I see. In a second Izuku threw a knife at his eye and then took the weapon from him and hit him with it on the head until he was deformed. He just pushed the man out of his way and walked in with a serious look. "Hey foe. Wow, your disciple has rebelled, hasn't he, Almight," he said with a smile upon seeing the angry look on his face. Katsuki. He just remained silent looking at Izuku who was sad and worried. "Hoda. What was that? It sounded strange," he said, somewhat worried. "Shadow. It's nothing, I think I have to put something on so they don't hear." Izuku walked through what looked like a seedy bar under the scared gaze of the criminals there until he reached a wooden door and broke it with a kick. "Jiren. I see you're here, you were able to get in, you know. I didn't have insurance," he said with a smile while smoking a cigarette. Izuku just said nothing and sat in the chair in front of him with an annoyed look. "Izuku. Where are they?" He turns around and choked on the smoke and became nervous. "Jiren. Hey kid, you're not thinking of going after them, it's suicide. Maybe the brat is the boss now, but they're still dangerous." He tensed up when he saw Izuku grab a pencil. "Izuku. I'll ask one more time, where are they?" he said while sharpening his pencil with a serious look. "Jiren. Hey, how about we discuss this calmly?" "There's no need for this," he said nervously, then shouted as he had the pencil buried in his hand. "Izuku. Where are they? Do you know or don't you know? Speak," he said while grabbing another pencil. "Jiren. Okay. They're in a warehouse at the dock, that's where they have their base after the incident with the heroes." He said scared and then sighed with relief when he saw how he was leaving the bar. "Izuku. Oh, one more thing," he said and then took out a ring, alarming all the criminals in the place. "I'll see you in hell." He left and ran, and then the whole place exploded, causing everything to collapse. "You will die very soon, Shigaraki," he said with a gloomy look as he left the place. "Shigaraki. I'm scared," he shouted while he was behind All For One, quite worried. Hiroshima. "Hey, didn't you explain why he's like that, Izubro?" Everyone just agreed with him. Shadow. "Okay, well Izuku in that universe didn't become a hero, but a policeman." Everyone was surprised by that, and he doesn't have a quirk. The villain started to sweat cold because of that. Izuku. "But why did I kill them all? And why do I want to kill Shigaraki?" he said confused and worried about what happened to him in that universe to end up like this. Shadow. "Well, there you are, an anti-hero who punishes criminals because of them your family was killed." Everyone worried and felt sad for the green-haired boy, and the one responsible for that is him. He just pointed at Shigaraki who began to tremble. "Izuku. My family," he had his gaze lowered, "he killed my mom," he said with a low voice worrying his friends. Shadow. "Not just her," he only saw the screen, leaving the room silent. Shigaraki. "Dabi, take out the stupid trash that Twice brought. I don't want junk in the lair," he said, annoyed, seeing different things that Twice brought. "Dabi. Why do I have to bring that up?" he said, annoyed only to see Shigaraki walk to talk to Kurogiri. Dabi just went outside with some bags until he threw them in the trash. "Dabi. This place is no good anymore, I think it would be better to get out of here," he said, annoyed to walk back to the den to stop when he heard something. "Who's there?" This path to then light his flames to only see a cat this eye to return to his path. He didn't notice the person in the shadows until he was shot in the head, his brains scattering across the floor. In the lair. Shigaraki. "Dabi is already taking too long, where are Compress Spiner and Toga?" He turned to Kurogiri who just shrugged his shoulders, "And where the hell is Twice? She's already taking too long with the food," he said annoyed as he walked outside. Shigaraki just walked a little while calling his team to get no response. Shigaraki. "Where the hell did those idiots go?" He heard a noise and walked there only to find nothing. "This isn't funny, you bunch of idiots." He saw a rope move a little, so he followed it with his eyes and fell to the ground, terrified when he saw Toga's body hanging. He just screamed and ran out of there until he tripped over something when he saw that it was the body of Compress and Spiner who had a blanket on them. He just entered the den scared while trying to understand what happened, but the light was turned off. Shigaraki. Kurogiri. "Where are you?" He was scared as he tried to turn on the light. "Whoever you are. Stop." He shouted but received no response until he heard a door slowly opening leading outside. He nervously walked out but saw nothing until everything went black. Shigaraki. What would happened? He had blood running down his forehead and realized that they were tied with chains to a post. What the hell? He tried to free himself but was tied up in a way that he couldn't activate his quirk. "Who's there?" he screamed with anger and fear. "Izuku. I see you've already woken up," he said as he came out of the shadows, leaving Shigaraki in shock. Shigaraki. How are you alive? I ordered you to be killed myself," he shouted in alarm upon seeing the green-haired man. Izuku. "Well, you didn't do it, not to me." He had his gaze lowered as he walked towards Shigaraki who was insulting him. "Do you know who died that day?" he said looking angrily at Shigaraki. Shigaraki. I don't know, and I'm not interested. You asked for it yourself when you tried to stop us. He received a punch with a bronze gauntlet, knocking out some of his teeth. Izuku. My mother, my wife, my daughter, you took away everything that mattered to me in this world. He said while hitting him again, breaking his nose, and you don't even remember their names. Hits him again in the eye, tell me. What did they have to do with it? He grabs him by the hair and knees him in the face, tell me. He screams and hits Shigaraki uncontrollably. He stopped and then grabbed a bucket and emptied it over himself. He stepped back with a serious look. Izuku. You know what? I don't want to know. He lights a match, terrifying Shigaraki. Anyway, just hearing your screams is enough for me. He threw a match, setting Shigaraki on fire. Everyone in the room was silent, not knowing what to say. Shigaraki. He was on the floor, passed out next to the league because of what they saw. Eerie. Has it started yet? She said with a cloth over her eyes and ear covers with Koda at her side. Shadow. Hello, well, see you in the next universe, vote and comment if you liked it. And as you may have noticed, this one came before the girlfriend's one, and why is it like this? Well, Wattpad doesn't collaborate with one. If Bakugo gets a girlfriend. Everyone in the room was talking about the previous universe and being careful not to hurt the green-haired boy's family. Nezu. Then he agrees to have this state-of-the-art security system to protect her from any danger, said Nezu showing brochures to Inko. Abi. I think I'm going to quit this villain job, he said as he stood up and sat next to his mother. See, I don't want any more trouble. He said, looking scared at the green-haired boy. Shigaraki. Traitor. Thank goodness you didn't abandon me. He saw how the only ones at his side were Kurogiri, Afo and Twice, who was playing a video game. Najire. Who could have been Izuku's wife? She was deep in thought. Asawa. Poor little thing, she said, giving the green-haired boy a juice which he accepted. Eerie. What are we going to see today, Mr. Shadow? She said with a smile. Koda. I couldn't see anything of the last one, he said, annoyed, sitting next to his aunt. Shadow. Okay, this universe won't be about Izuku, many were happy about that, it will be about something that many fear will happen. This worried everyone. Ida. What could be so bad? He said, somewhat worried. Shadow. What would happen if Bakugo gets a girlfriend? Everyone in the room fell silent and then screamed in terror and ran like crazy. Todoroki. Run, fools, it's the end. He shouted while hiding behind Enderber. Mineta. The sky is falling. He screamed while curling up into a ball. Izuku. Why are they behaving like this? I don't think anything bad will happen if Kaken gets a girlfriend. He said, confused. Tatsuki. Shut up, you bunch of idiots. He shouted furiously while hitting Denki in the face. Shadow. Okay, anyway, let's start with this, he said, calming everyone. Hiroshima. Yes, and what bad things could happen if Bakugo gets a girlfriend, he said, smiling while laughing. In the universe. Hiroshima. Why do we always end up in this shit, he said while massaging his temple. Izuku. You have to be kidding me, this one had a twitch in his eye. Adam, we only had to do one thing, how the buck did we end up like this? He yelled while moving Todoroki from one side to the other. Todoroki, do you want me to summarize it for you? He said with a serious look despite being moved. The kids were at the amusement park in their hero costumes because of what was in front of them. God. Hand me over to the Antichrist or you'll suffer the consequences. He shouted angrily while the boys were just trembling. Hiroshima. You know what, I'd better keep quiet, he said while sighing in defeat. Itsuki. How can you be fighting with God? And why does he say my son is the Antichrist if he's a little angel? Everyone just raised an eyebrow and laughed uncontrollably. Itsuki. Shut up, Shiny. He shouted furiously while being held back by Asawa. Ibara. Poor unfortunate woman who was with that impure being, she said while praying for the poor girl. Shadow. Contradictory, don't you think so, he said laughing a little. Izuku. Lord God, could you tell us why you love Kaken? He said somewhat nervously. Saint Peter. Your friend cannot be with God's most devoted daughter. He is an aberration of nature, that's why we cannot allow him to be with her. Adam. Damn, shitty dude, that bucking Bakugo may be shit, but he also has a heart, he said, arms crossed. Odd. Really? He said with a raised eyebrow. Shoto. Deep down, that kid has a heart deep down, he said while sighing. Odd. I don't care. Hand me over to the Antichrist or prevent me from being with Ibara, or else prepare your asses for the consequences. Understand? He screamed furiously as the whole place shook. They only thought about how they had gotten into such a mess, and they remembered it was because of that idiot. Ibara. Stay away from my spawn of Satan. I shouted behind Izuku while pointing across at him. Izuku. You know what? I think Kaken isn't made for relationships, his friends just nodded. Shigaraki. Damn, it would have been useful to have the Antichrist in our forces, don't you think, sensei? he said somewhat disappointed. Afo. I really don't know how you couldn't recruit that, said watching as Asawa and other teachers kept Bakugo tied to a chair, but I think it's for the best. Twice. That thing has rabies. He said when he saw foam coming out of its mouth. Izuku. Ibara-san, why are you behind me? He said somewhat nervously, having Ibara behind him pointing across at Bakugo. Ibara. Please, you are the closest thing to an angel of God. Everyone nodded and agreed with her, making Izuku blush. Najire. Looking at Ibara with a smile. Mirio. Jealous. He said next to her with a raised eyebrow. Najire. What? Of course not, haha, she said blushing, looking away. Tamaki. Come on, take the bait, he thought while he had some black glasses. The friends were very surprised by what they saw in front of them. Bakugo was well dressed, bathed, with a hairstyle like the one from his internships, with a board which had an itinerary that had everything about the appointment he would have. Bakugo. And when I say yes, they launched the fireworks, understood? He said looking at his friends who nodded except Izuku who raised his hand. What about Deku? Izuku. Are you really thinking of asking Ibara to marry you? You're not on drugs or anything, right? He said, looking with his eyes half closed. Bakugo. Of course not, animal. Why do you doubt? Annoyed scream. Adamix, maybe because the first time you tried it you ended up blowing up a gas station, he said with a poker face. Shoto, oh, because the second time you ended up sending some children to the hospital, he said in the same way. Hiroshima. And don't even mention the third time you tried. Do you know how difficult it was to fix things with a D, he said with a raised eyebrow. Bakugo. Details, that's why you bunch of retards will help me achieve it, he said with a smile. Shoto. You're a complete idiot if you think we're going to help you ask Ibara to marry you after insulting us, he said angrily. Mineta. Let's be honest, you guys think I'm the purest, most tender, and innocent girl who would agree to marry that, he said, looking at Bakugo who was foaming at the mouth with anger. Adam. I don't find any flaws in your logic, but I support you, he said sighing with resignation. Shoto. Sighing, well, I have nothing to do, and my girlfriend thinks I'm still working, he said looking at Bakugo. Izuku. Didn't you have a very important dinner with Momo's parents? He said confused. Shoto, that's why my good friend Yuke, we have to help Bakugo since friends come first, he said with a look full of determination, raising his fist. Everyone. Ahahaha, yes of course, they said with disappointment. Hiroshima. You're my bro, so count on me, friend, he said with a smile. Bakugo. Great. Only you are missing Deku. He said looking at the green-haired boy who had a serious look. Izuku. You know you've been insulting me, hurting me both physically and mentally since we were children, and you also told me to commit suicide in high school, and you told Kendo and Melissa that I faked orgasms, and that's why I was in the hospital with temporary paralysis from the waist down for a month, he said with his arms crossed while looking at him seriously. Bakugo. If you help me you can hide in my house when the girls want to leave you drier than Mineta's hex life. Mineta only covered it with a depressive aura. Izuku. You tempt me, he said with his hand on his chin. Okay, when do we start? He shouted enthusiastically. And so the plan hatched by the unstable mind of an explosive madman began. Ida. You guys are aspiring heroes, you can't possibly have trouble with the law. And a gas station exploded. He said in front of his classmates. Afo. Does that boy really want to be a hero? He asked Kirishima, who just covered his face in embarrassment. Izuku. Hey, what did he mean by girls? He said, blushing a bit. Shadow. In that reality you are married to Kendo and Melissa, everyone was surprised by that. Inko. I have 2 daughters-in-law. Wow, son, I'm so happy you can give me lots of grandchildren. She said, clasping her hands in joy. Midoriya, Shonen and Melissa, huh? I approve. Shonen, I'll prepare everything for the wedding, he said, pulling a very blushing and nervous Melissa. Melissa, ho hi Deku-kun, she said blushing. Tetsu. That's great. Kendo is with Izubro, he's the second most manly man I know. It'll be amazing, we have to celebrate. He said, raising his fist as his teammates followed him, leaving a very blushing and nervous Kendo. Satsuna. Come on, don't be shy, he will be your husband after all, haha, she said, dragging Kendo to Izuku's side, who was very nervous. Uraraka and Ajire. I see that you're having fun, aren't you, Deku-kun Izuku, they both said with a sinister aura, leaving Izuku fainted. Iri. That's great. I'm going to have lots of breasts. She said happily next to Izuku's unconscious body. Mineta. You know at this point I can't even be bothered, he said putting Shigaraki's hand on his face. Shigaraki. You know we can't use our powers, right? He said, pushing the purple-haired boy away. Mineta. We had to try it, he said shrugging his shoulders. The boys began following the couple to the park where Bakugo made a line for the boys to kick out anyone who entered, leaving it for the two of them. After that the couple arrived at a luxurious restaurant where they sat down to wait for the waiter who was the good Adamix with a mustache in the pure style of Mario Bros. "Adam, mommy, what do you want to order?" he said, giving her the menus while keeping his mustache from falling off. "Ibarra. How strange, I thought it was a Greek restaurant," she said, confused. She didn't notice how Bakugo kicked Adamix in the leg. "Adamix. He and she is, miss, but you know how drugs are, they make us believe anything," he laughs nervously seeing Bakugo's murderous look. "Bakugo. We'll order this," he said, giving the menu with a scary smile to Adamix, who went to the kitchen. Upon entering the kitchen, he saw the cooks gagged on the floor and his friends Kirishima and Shoto dressed as cooks. "Adam. Well, which of you unstable assholes knows how to cook Greek food?" he said, accidentally throwing his mustache into a hot dog. Kirishima. "Greek food? No way, I thought they said it was Italian," he said confused, looking at Todoroki. Shoto. "My fault," he said raising his hand, "I misread that crap," he said apologetically. Kirishima. "How the hell do you expect us to cook if you know he forgets it," he said sighing with resignation. Izuku. "Leave it to me," he said opening the fridge. And that's how they grabbed them and gave them a Greek yogurt with other things and told them it was a Greek gourmet dish, charging Bakugo more, who just looked at them angrily. Now we can see our protagonists in the back with peace of mind. Izuku. "I can't believe it worked. With this extra money I'll be able to buy some good Almight figures," he said with a smile. Shoto. "Well, I think this will help me pay off my debt a little," he said, looking at the money. Kirishima. "My friend, even selling your ass will not allow you to pay that debt," he said, putting his hand on his shoulder while watching Shoto cry. Adamix. "Okay, I think this shit has already taken effect on me," he said, looking at the pipe and then looking at the sky. Everyone saw the sky which was shining in a strange way and lightning was falling. "Odd. Hand me over to the Antichrist." And so, my friends, we got to this point in the story. What happened next? That's a story for another day. Everyone in the room was laughing their heads off. Mirio. "Ha ha 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 ha, the 1A guys are very lively, but you have to be careful so that guy doesn't find a partner," he said looking at Bakugo. Enki. "Don't worry, he'll scare them away," he said laughing, only to receive a blow to the face. Jiro. "And who was that black-haired guy?" she said confused. Kirishima. "I don't know, but it was clear that he understood life," he said laughing. Todoroki. "So in that universe I'm with Momo." The aforementioned just blushed, but what does she mean by a debt? He said confused and worried seeing his other self cry. Izuku. "I don't know but I'm happy for you Todoroki-kun," said Izuku putting his hand on his friend's shoulder with a big smile. Setsuna. "And well, Ibarra, will you stay with the rabbit guy?" she said with a malicious smile to the girl. Ibarra. "No way. If God did everything to keep that monster from being with me, it was for a good reason," she said, clasping her hands in prayer. Setsuna. "Yes, you're right," she said smiling, "but if it was with an angel, it would be different, right?" she said laughing when she saw how Ibarra blushed when she saw Izuku talking with his friends. Shadow. "Okay, people, this is the longest one I've done so far and I don't regret anything, as you know, I decided to change things up a bit and now I'll leave you 3 options for you to vote on and choose which universe to see. I might put the proposals, but that's unnecessary, so wait for it. And until next time. First vote. Hello, it's me, Shadow. As you may know, I said last time I'd do this voting thing to make it easier, since I'd make a ton of universes if I had my way, but since some of you are making suggestions, I realized I want you all to have a say in this. Another thing I will separate by category like this. You will wonder, well I will put the name of the universe next to what universe it is, and then its genre if it is horror, comedy, sadness and so on. Let's give it some variety, people. That's why I'm going to do it and I'll post the universes I want to make along with some of the ones you propose. Since I also don't want to fall into the typical cliche of Izuku versus the 10 Commandments or something like that's in almost all of the viewing universes. Well, now that I've said that, I'll put the universes. First universe. 1. A true friend, Tokyo Ghoul Shansen 2, sadness. Deku the name of chaos, Deku the most dangerous being brings chaos to the entire society, action. Graduates. The boys from the legendary class finally graduate. Let's see their adventures after they do so. Humor. More or less there they are. Yes, I know I put the villain Deku, but it's the law to have a villain Deku in this kind of thing. Deny it to me. Well, I'll leave this here. Now it's up to the few people who read this ugly thing to know which universe to do. I almost forgot. Depending on the universe, they'll be longer or shorter. Well, that's all, so wait for it. And until next time. Graduates. Shadow. Well, it's obvious who won, so we'll start with this. Irikoda. Who is he talking to? They asked, confused when they saw him talking to nothing. Shadow. Izuku, isn't that right? He said, looking at a confused Izuku. Izuku? Were you talking to me? I'm sorry, I didn't pay attention, he said, apologizing repeatedly. So what Shadow shonen are we going to watch today? Everyone watched with curiosity. Denki. I hope it's not like the previous one, he said somewhat nervously upon seeing an annoying Bakugo. Shadow. It's about what will happen when they graduate and become heroes. Everyone present was surprised and excited by that. Hashirama. How cool. I can't wait to see what we'll be like as heroes. I'm sure I'm very masculine. He shouts enthusiastically with his companions. Shigaraki. Damn, what a nuisance. Now we'll have to take care of these brats, he just growled, looking at the heroes with hatred. Shadow. Well, let's get this started. You can see the prestigious UA Hero Academy, where a grand ceremony was being held to introduce the new great heroes trained over the years to defeat evil to the world. Nezu. I am pleased to introduce you to the new generation of heroes, those who with unsurpassed effort and dedication have achieved their goals and aspirations to be pillars for society as we know it. Let me introduce you to this year's graduates of the heroic class. Everyone applauded as they watched a large red curtain covering the stage, which opened to show nothing. There was no one there. Midnight A. Where the hell are they now? Asawa, where is your class? I scream, annoyed without finding him anywhere. Present Mick, now that you mention it, I haven't seen them since yesterday, and King Vlad is nowhere to be seen, he said, scratching his neck. Nezu. Now where did they go? Well, you might be wondering where the recently graduated heroic classes are at this important moment. Well, it's a bit complicated to say. Izuku. Where am I and why does my head hurt so much? He tried to move but feels a weight on top of him. He notices a white hair with red strands lying on his chest, noticing that it was Todoroki's sister and she was naked. He manages to get out of her grip, only to find on the other side a completely white hair hugging his arm. I'm dead. He could only break free from her grip and notice that it was his best friend's mother, who was also naked. The whole room was silent until a roar was heard like a wild animal, which was Endeavor, which jumped on the green-haired man with the intention of strangling him. Asawa. Keep your hands off my unhappy offspring. You won't ruin his moment of manhood. He shouted angrily, rushing to hit Endeavor. Everyone else just watched as Endeavor hit Izuku while Asawa hit him in the face, trying to get him away from the green-haired boy, while the bicolor had his gaze lowered, followed by releasing a sinister aura. Uraraka. Ha 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 ha. She started laughing like crazy and then fainted. Najire. Wow, that's something energetic, Midoriya, don't you think so, guys? She said with a smile, making Mirio nervous. Tamaki. Yes, it is. By the way, I think you wouldn't mind if he stayed with some of them, would you? He said with a smile while Mirio was paralyzed upon seeing Najire's death aura. Though Koyami. Wow, apparently he's not afraid of death, he saw with shock what his senpai said. Fayumi. I see, can't be that, or can I? She said, very blushed and nervous next to her mother, who was the same as her. Inko. Take your hands off my son, cheap copy of the Human Torch. She shouted, giving Endeavor a combined punch along with Asawa. Wow, Izuku, you're quite the gentleman. I'm so happy, I'm sure I'll have lots of grandchildren, how nice. She said happily as she helped him get up. Asawa. You are a proud offspring, he said, wiping a tear from his cheek. Izuku could only faint due to his injuries and nerves. Abi. He's much better than that idiot Enji, he thought while he saw his nervous sister and mother. Izuku could only quickly get out of there, quite nervous and scared, to walk to the living room, only to find a mess. He wonders what mess then. Mineta was tied to an inverted cross wearing only a toga, and it was noticeable that he was unconscious. Kirishima had his head completely shaved next to an unconscious Tetsu, in which some teeth were missing. In the kitchen he could see Momo lying on the counter asleep next to a naked Todoroki with a traumatized face, muttering things about pain and fear of teapots. He ignored him and continued on his way to find some of the A and B class unconscious and with clear signs that they had gotten drunk and drugged, also that Asawa was bathing in an inflatable pool completely naked while snorting cocaine while watching King Vlad dance on a table. Izuku. But what the hell happened yesterday? He thought, scared, walking through the halls trying to find someone conscious and who probably isn't drugged. Hey Ida, he'll surely know what happened. He ran until he reached the blue-haired man's room without finding him. When he saw that the window was broken, he poked his head out, staring blankly at the patio. Izuku slowly went down and left, keeping a poker face when he saw the patio, which was worse than inside. There were traces of destruction, surely due to Bakugo's quirk, clothes and bottles of alcohol everywhere. Tokoyami. Me Midoriya, help me please, I don't want any more cookies. Izuku saw a Tokoyami in a cage in the fetal position, with a bunch of bird cookie packets around him. Izuku. Now I'm really scared, he said, helping Tokoyami, who just started vomiting in some bushes. Izuku just left him so he could vent a little. He continued walking until he saw the rest of the class, who were in the same state as those inside, but he saw something that left him somewhat traumatized. Ida. I am the fastest thing alive. He screamed while running with red eyes while he was completely naked. The only thing covering him was a kind of bee backpack on his crotch, passing by Izuku and crashing into a wall. Mina. And he's not even the one in the worst condition, she said, sighing, scaring Izuku, who blushed when he saw that she was only wearing a bra and some somewhat dirty pants. Shigaraki. Wow, look at the supposed heroes, look at them. Are those your heroes? He said, looking at the children while pointing at the screen. It's a dark day for humanity, said with a depressive aura along with the other teachers. Isawa. I have failed you, my children. She said, kneeling down dramatically while King Vlad put a hand on her shoulder with a lost look. Monoma. Oh my, the class is having problems, huh? Aren't they supposed to be the best? Aren't they supposed to be the closest to being heroes? He receives a blow to the back of the head, leaving him unconscious. Endo. Shut up, idiot, don't you see we're there too? She said with a lost look as she saw herself unconscious on top of a tree hugging a nest. Setsuna. Wow, it's clear they know how to throw parties. Everyone looks at her blankly, scaring her a little. Ida. I don't deserve to be the class president. He screamed as he fell to his knees while his classmate supported him. Mina. Wow, Izuku likes what he sees, right? She said with a raised eyebrow, blushing and making Izuku nervous, who had just woken up. Izuku. I didn't mean to, I'm sorry, it's just me, well me. He just babbled with spiral eyes until someone put a hand on his shoulder, scaring him when he saw it was the bicolor's hand. Todoroki. Midoriya. Izuku only trembled when he saw how Todoroki had his gaze lowered while he slowly approached, scaring the green-haired boy even more, who was paralyzed upon hearing some words. I give you my blessing, take care of my mother and sister Midoriya no, father. I laughed, and Fayumi only screamed in shock at what the bicolor said, while Izuku fainted again. Enji. Shituo. Why do you call that brat father? He shouted angrily while being held back by some teachers. Shoto. Let's see, he did more for me in one day than you did in 16 years, he said, shrugging his shoulders, helping an unconscious Izuku. Abi. In your face, you son of a bitch. He said, laughing out loud under Enji's annoyed gaze. Momo. Why was she like this next to Todoroki? She screamed, blushing and nervous, while Mina gave her a thumbs up. Shadow. I think this is getting out of control, he said, looking at the chaos that was formed in such a short time. Izuku. Mina, why are you dressed like that? He shouted, somewhat blushed and nervous. Mina. Well, that's because I have no idea really, haha, laughed somewhat embarrassed. Hey Midoriya, do you know what happened last night? I was going to ask Ida, but you already know how he is, she said with a poker face when she saw Ida stuck in the unconscious wall. Izuku. I had the same idea, he just sighed, looking at a Denki on the ground, who had an idiot face and smoke coming out of his crotch. Do you know where Kaken is? Or Uraraka? He asked, rubbing his eyes. Mina. Well, Uraraka was tied to a tree when I saw her. And Bakugo, I think I saw him with some from Class B, along with Sato and Siro going to the forest, although they only had loincloths and spears, she said, somewhat confused, looking at Izuku's face. Izuku. Damn, what the hell happened yesterday? He said, hitting himself in the face. Hey, Izuku's gaze lit up for a second, Mina saw how for the first time Izuku's gaze radiated pure hatred. Shigaraki. He shouted furiously, raising his fist in the air. Somewhere. Shigaraki. He sneezes while looking around, noticing how the bar was a mess. Damn, who's talking about me now, he said while yawning, walking over twice his unconscious and drunk body. Back with Izuku. Mina. Are you sure it was Shigaraki Tamura who was responsible for this? She asked, somewhat confused and incredulous. Izuku. Maybe I don't have proof, but I don't have doubts either, he said, starting to walk, followed by Mina towards the dormitories until he reached the responsible teachers. Asawa. But look who we have here, my dear students. How is life treating you? He said, getting out of the pool, making both of them nervous when they saw that he was naked. Do you want something to eat? I don't have any food, but it doesn't hurt to ask, he said, taking out a bottle of rum from under Shoji's unconscious body. Izuku. Asawa-sensei, do you know what happened yesterday? He said somewhat nervously, looking away from his sensei. Asawa. Yesterday, yes. I don't know, she said, shrugging her shoulders as she downed the bottle in one gulp. Mina. I don't think it will be of much use to us, Izuku, she said, sighing as she saw her sensei full unconscious. Maybe we'll get lucky with Vlad sensei. Izuku just nodded, and they arrived with their sensei, who was dancing on a table with a blank look. Izuku. Edo, are you okay with Vlad sensei? He asked somewhat nervously upon seeing the empty look of the blood hero. Mina. Hey, Izuku is talking to you. She said, somewhat annoyed, moving the table a little, causing her to lose her balance and fall face first onto the floor, scaring them both. Izuku? Mina, don't you think you went too far? He said, somewhat scared when he saw how he began to get up little by little. Mina just stood behind Izuku, a little scared, until the blood hero stood up, a little sore. BK. Where am I? What happened? He said, confused, looking around, paralyzed by all the destruction. Izuku? Well, we were hoping you would tell us, sensei. Izuku said, sighing, helping the hero sit down. BK. The last thing I remember is Monoma asking me something and everything else is blurry, he said, grabbing his face. They remained silent until they saw the ceiling collapse and they saw Shinso tied up in a bunch of cables falling onto a table, breaking it and rolling. Shinso. I curse the bitch who fixed it. He shouted, trying to get rid of the cables until he saw the three of them who had confused and astonished faces. Hello, a hand. You might be wondering what happened. Well, that's a story for another time, or maybe not. Everyone in the room was silent, not knowing what to say until they saw Riti get up and approach a wheeler. Hiroshima. Well, I want to withdraw from the UA if it's not too much trouble, he said with a smile and a depressive aura around him. Bakugo. TSK, that's pure nonsense, that won't happen if we graduate with spiked hair. Annoyed scream. Izuku. It's true, Kirishima-san, don't worry about it, he said somewhat nervously, trying to avoid a disaster. Bakugo. Yes, as if the idiot Deku could be with those two, hahaha, that's just stupid, the nerd is an idiot who will be alone for the rest of his life, he said, laughing, not noticing Todoroki's death glare. Todoroki. Don't mess with my family, you little idiot. He said, punching him in the face, followed by Fayumi, Rai, Natsuo, and Dabi joining them. Denki. Okay, what happened? He said, confused, seeing how they started hitting Bakugo. Even Inko joined them to turn him into shit. Twice. What a nice family, said while watching the Muslim being beaten. Momo. I think Todoroki accepted Midoriya as his father very quickly, she said nervously next to Jiro, who was recording everything with her phone, and in the background, you can see an Enji crying on Almight's shoulder. Eerie. Now I have moms. And brothers. And is my mom my sister? Or me, who am I? I asked while very confused. Shadow. I think I should think things through better when putting this crap, he thought as he saw a blonde all messed up on the floor and an Izuku being hugged by the entire ex-Todoroki family. Shadow. Well, I think that's all for today. I'll post the next vote in a while. Maybe they'll say, hey, why don't you put it at the end of the chapter? Well, that's simple, I'm too lazy to make this longer, so bye. Second vote. Hello. Okay, maybe I wasn't very present like the father of any shonen and I'm protagonist, but it's for a good reason. I didn't have Wi-Fi or anything like that, so I couldn't update or do absolutely anything, if anyone understands my pain. Insert your F here. But leaving that aside, someone was giving me ideas for a vote, so I said, why not? And I'll put it in the options for you to choose from. There will also be 2 options to draw the universe, so vote in both categories to choose. 1. Goodbye, rap of Minato and Kushina from the anime Naruto. 2. You're Next, rap by Ace, Luffy and the Traitor from the anime One Piece. 3. Virtual Rivalry, Super Smash Bros. Rap of Mario, Bowser, Link, Donkey Kong and Pikachu. Second category. 1. The hero of brutality, Izuku Midoriya, known as the most dangerous and ruthless Quirkless hero aspirant of all, action. 2. Goodbye Little Fairy, the story of Shinigami Izuku and the trail of pain and sadness he carries throughout his long existence, sadness. 3. The not-so-bad symbol of evil. Izuku, a successor of All for One, seeks to bring chaos and end to the heroic society, although he doesn't always succeed, humor. That will be all for this time, vote for the ones that catch your attention the most and until next time. The Pirate with Fire Fists. You could see everyone having a quiet conversation, and by quiet, I mean fighting amongst themselves and throwing things in the air. Shadow. I really don't know what to say, sighing as he massaged his temples, seeing the mess. Todoroki. This better serve as a lesson to you, he said, wiping the blood off his hands. You could see an unconscious Bakugo and the new Midoriya family next to the green-haired boy. Izuku. Okay, can someone tell me what's going on? He said somewhat nervously since Rai and Fayumi were sitting next to him, embarrassed, but they didn't say a single word. Shoto. So now you're part of the family, which wasn't clear. He asked while giving him a cap that said the best new pope in the world. Mirio. Wow, I really didn't see that one coming, but some people don't seem very happy with that, he said looking at Melissa, Kendo, Ibarra and Uraraka's faces, but I'm happy for them, don't you think, Tamaki? He turned to where his friend should be, but all he saw was the empty seat. Najire. Tamaki went to take a little nap. Mirio, don't worry, she said with an innocent smile, giving him a sinister look. Mirio. It's fine he kept smiling and turned around with a face of complete terror while sweating cold. Kendo. I really don't understand why they're acting like this, it's just an alternate universe, nothing that happened there will happen here, she muttered with a frown and crossed her arms, sitting next to Setsuna. Setsuna. In that case, would that also apply to you or not? She said with an eyebrow raised and smiling mockingly, so that Kendo only had an annoyed look. Mineta. You know at this point the only thing I can do is die and hope to be reincarnated in an isekai world, said to Kaminari, who had a lost and disappointed look. Shadow. Okay, that was a lot of Naruto, he said bored snapping his fingers getting everyone's attention, as you remember it's time to show a new universe. Eri? Really? We couldn't see the last one very well either, she said somewhat disappointed. Koda. I feel cheated, he said with an annoyed look. Shadow. You can see this one and I'll tell you who it's about, he said, being interrupted. Tamura. Don't tell me the damn brat with the head of a bush, he said annoyed. Shadow. Yes, but you also appear Lord of the Straws, he said so that everyone began to mock, and you too Koda. Koda was surprised and looked to his sides, and then pointed at himself in surprise, no idiot. The other brat who has a cap with horns. Of course you see another one. This one only pointed to a brown-haired boy with a small band-aid on his nose next to a small dinosaur which was biting the unconscious body of the Muslim. Child. Sorry. I'm going to interrupt you. He went through a portal and went with the little dinosaur, which was a small triceratops. Hiroshima. And who was that? He asked confused by the strange scene. Tetsu. I have no idea, friend, he said, looking into the void, just like Hiroshima. Shadow. Leaving that aside, here is the universe, he said with some nostalgia looking where the boy and the mini dinosaur went. In the universe. You can see a beautiful blue sky and several birds flying peacefully over the vast sea until a piano tone is heard and you can see how it quickly approaches until it reaches the top of a mountain where a silhouette with a big smile was seen holding his hat. This is the story of the king's son. It looks like Salta with a determined smile. Fire fists. Porthos de Izuku. Bakugo. Where the hell am I? What the hell happened to me? He said furiously to see how they ignored him to look at the screen and be surprised, to slowly look down. Hiroshima. Your clothes seem familiar, he thought, looking in surprise. He fell prey to a cruel fate that marked his childhood. There was sadness along his path, but it was far away. He would find strength in a goal. Becoming a great pirate kept him alive. Captive among the mountains, training his skill. Day after day, without rest, in the face of harshness. Of a harsh existence that cannot make him yield. For there is no rival who can stand up to his endurance. Hiroshima. Wow, just wow, he said with a look full of astonishment. Koda. Mr. Izuku is a pirate. How cool. He said excitedly, along with Eri, who looked excitedly at Izuku. Izuku? Well, apparently so, he laughed a little nervously, noticing how everyone was looking at him. Iida. Midoriya. Piracy is a serious crime. We don't know the great problems it brings to the noble people who work at sea. That's why. Everyone sees how he falls unconscious and is left in his chair by Kendo who looked at them as if nothing had happened. That Midoriya shonen looks powerful. I wonder if there is a one for all, he wondered while looking at the screen. Inko. A pirate my son became a pirate, she said in a ball, muttering at high speed, making Izuku nervous. He knew brotherhood and friendship. He promised that with his enormous will he would make all her dreams come true. That's why he always rigorously put effort. He set sail with immense excitement. What it was like to be part of a great crew. Filled with conviction, he set off aimlessly. Soon the whole world would know his name. He never backs down in battle. Every time he fights, his strength explodes. With the power of a great volcano. That will wipe out all evil. Against his opponent, his fists burned. Even at a disadvantage, he was never a coward. And he always remained strong. He went head on to the very end. In no time, his fame would spread across the seas. The power of his flames would spread fear and sorrow among his rivals, who would be powerless to stop him. But the one who would be his first obstacle would arrive. The legendary Whitebeard, who earned his respect. He admired him like a father, and he wouldn't stay still. When betrayal threatened the order of his troops. He felt in his heart like a shot fired at point-blank range. Izuku. Gran Torino. They shouted in surprise upon seeing the Gran Torino of that universe. GT. I look beautiful. I screamed while seeing his version of that universe that was taken from JoJo's itself. Bakugo. What the buck? Are you saying the Flying Yoda is that super duper pirate? He screams, only to get hit on the head by his mother. Hiroshima. He looks very masculine. He shouts with excitement. Tamura. Wait, is that me? He thought seeing himself from that universe running. He gallops over the waves with a desire for revenge. carrying on his back the honor of his flag. He did not rest in his search, and among so many adventures, he managed to find the one who fled treacherously. A merciless fight breaks out head-on between two pirates who demonstrate their brutality. Fire versus darkness. An ending that ends with Izuku face down and surrendered to the navy. Everyone. Tamura, they shouted in surprise. Tamura. Hahaha, I am a success. Laughing like crazy. Najire. Izuku will be fine, you'll see. She said, looking at the screen with concern. Eri. Papa Izuku. She said worriedly next to Kota, who was scared by the green-haired man with the hat. Shoto. You'll see, my father will defeat you since he always gets up and will burn your bucking face with his powerful flames. He shouted angrily. Endeavor smiled upon hearing that and stood up with a look full of hope. I assure you, Mom, Fayumi, Dad, Izuku will defeat him. Endeavor. It looks like it's going to rain, he said while looking at the sky and tears falling from his eyes. Asui. This isn't fun anymore, it's sad, Jiro said, looking at Endeavor crying while being comforted by Almight. He never backs down in battle. Every time he fights, his strength explodes. With the power of a great volcano. That will wipe out all evil. Against his opponent, his fists burned. Even at a disadvantage, he was never a coward. And he always remained strong. He went head-on to the very end. Locked in, impelled down, ready for execution. Accepting his fate and the failure of his mission. Evicted on the deadly gallows of Marine Ford, he wouldn't be alone, for he had a bond of love. Whitebeard and his crew arrived to the rescue. His younger brother Kota wouldn't miss the fight. And after a deadly fight against the Navy, they managed to free him, and now he's a fire that lights up. Kota. Hold on. I'm Izuku's brother. He shouted in surprise for Shadow to nod. Well, it's not what I expected, but I'm satisfied. He said with emotion. Eri. So Kota is my uncle. Since he's my dad's brother, but Kota is like my brother, so my moms are Kota's sisters-in-law, and his aunt is dad's aunt. Then, Shadow covers his mouth and gives him a caramel apple. Denki. Thank you very much, my head was about to explode with those things, he said with a headache. Shoto. I have an uncle, he crouches down to Kota's height. Here uncle. Kota only sees that he gave him a cup of coffee that said the best uncle. Abi. You know, I think I can get used to this shit, he said to himself while watching the bizarre scene. Like a son on the battlefield where war is being ousted, Whitebeard orders a retreat. But as they flee, someone insulted his father. And he wouldn't allow just any dog to bark at him. He turned around and faced the admiral. But he attacked his brother, and in a brief moment, he took the lead, receiving the massive attack. Asking Kota for forgiveness for not keeping his pact. He always questioned his humble existence. But he realized after the experience of love that everything he did had great value. The only time he turned his back, it was to protect the one who mattered most to him. That's why his name is always remembered. With a big smile full of hope. Hiroshima. This is the most masculine thing I've ever seen and heard. Even a man can cry with this, he said, crying like a baby being hugged by Mina. Kota. Bastard sons of their holy mother. My brother didn't last long because those sons of bitches killed him. Everyone just watched with their eyes open what he said. Mandalay Kota. Who the hell taught you all those words? She screamed angrily along with the wild pussycats who had a blank look on their faces. Kota. That's him, Aunt. He forced me to say them many times. Now Eri opened her eyes wide. I didn't want to, but he forced me or else he would throw an explosion at me, he said, pointing at Bakugo, who could only remain blank. Hiroshima. Bakubro, I'll just tell you one thing, he said, putting a hand on his shoulder with a sincere smile. Run bitch run. A large number of people could be seen chasing Bakugo with the intention of killing him while cursing Kota and Izuku out of habit. Eri. Hey Kota, at no time did Mr. Bakugo teach us those words, he said, watching as Mirio attacked him and began to massacre him along with the others. Kota. Maybe yes, maybe not. The point is that I wasn't going to waste the opportunity, and besides, he deserves it for what he did to Mr. Izuku. Eri was just confused, you know. Well, let me tell you a story. Izuku. Well, seeing me die was a bit weird, but this, he said while watching the wild pussycats beat Bakugo, leaves a good taste in my mouth. Hahaha, he laughed amusedly. Tamaki. Wow Midoriya, you're evil, he said, appearing suddenly, scaring the green-haired boy. Izuku. Tamaki-senpai. Where was I? It seemed strange to me that he didn't say anything, in that I noticed how he had some bruises and a big bump on his head. Tamaki. Well. Memory. Najire. You're weak, Tamaki, I hate you, she said while she was choking him. End of memory. Tamaki. And that's what happened, he said while Izuku only got a drop of sweat. Izuku. Really? Tamaki. What do you think? Najire gave me a tremendous beating, or can't you see? she said and then opened a package of cookies. Do you like them? And so Izuku and Tamaki ate some cookies while they watched Bakugo get screwed again. Shadow. And this shit was supposed to be sad. He said looking at a script. I think I should change my profession, he said looking at how Mitsuki took off her flip-flop. Run, full side. The angel of death. Shadow. Well, we're back, so do you want to shut up? He said seriously, making everyone sit down suddenly. Shigaraki. Damn, I forgot he was a god, said sitting, somewhat scared by the death stare. Nezu. Well, leaving that aside, what universe will we see this time, young man? He said, sitting in a high chair similar to that of infants. Shadow. Well, a different one, so pay attention, he said so the screen would shine. Eerie. I wonder what it is. She said in a low voice with emotion. Shadow only saw her out of the corner of his eye, well he had a serious look to see Mirio who had a smile. Shadow. I almost forgot Mirio, the mention looked at him with doubt. There is someone who will see this universe. I think it will make you happy, he said to close his eyes and sigh. Everyone saw a faint light that appeared in a chair near Mirio, so that it took shape and a person was seen. Mirio. No, it can't be, tears formed in his eyes. Izuku. It's impossible, it's him, he said with surprise and joy. Sir Night-Eye. It's good to see you again, Mirio, he said with a calm look and a slight smile. Everyone was surprised by the appearance of Sir Night-Eye. Mirio stood up and gave him a big hug, leaving some with a smile of happiness seeing his meeting. Izuku, who saw that, smiled while looking at Shadow. Shadow. Now take a seat and look at the next universe, he said with a smile when he saw Sir Night-Eye with a grateful expression towards him. Nothing, absolutely nothing in this world is eternal. No matter what we do, what we choose, we will not be able to be part of it forever. Every living being has a time and an end, and even if it hurts like never before, this law cannot be withdrawn. No matter what. A starry sky can be seen in Japan, which is slowly being hidden by dense clouds, indicating a storm. The rain began to fall on the people who were going from one place to another in their different lives, and in the middle of it all you can see the figure of a young green-haired man who looked at the people. He only stayed like that for a few seconds, until he saw a woman with a small black-haired child in her arms walking while laughing under an umbrella. Denki. What's up with that beginning? Nervous whisper, looking at the screen. Ida. There's Midoriya, but he looks different, he said with concern. Hiroshima. He looked at the screen but felt a chill. What is this? He said trembling a little. Eerie. Mr. Shadow, what's wrong with Dad in that world? She said nervously because of how the rain was falling on her and he didn't seem to care. Shadow. Well, look and you'll know, he said turning his back on them. The green-haired man, who only had a black t-shirt and pants of the same color, walked toward the sidewalk, standing next to the woman who laughed as she watched her little son play with a hero doll. The woman noticed how the boy was getting wet, so she decided to share her umbrella. Woman. You know, young man, you shouldn't let the rain fall on you like that, you might catch a cold, said the black-haired woman with a smile while her son continued playing without paying attention. Hiroshima. No, it can't be. He shouted as he stood up, leaving many confused. Mina. Hey Kirishima, what's wrong? She asked, somewhat worried, seeing her friend smile with true happiness. Shadow. This will end badly, he thought seriously without taking his eyes off the screen. The boy didn't say anything, he just kept his gaze down without responding, keeping a sad expression. The woman noticed it and was worried about the state of the green-haired boy. Izuku. Excuse me, I'm really sorry, he said with his gaze lowered without letting us see his eyes, which were closed. The woman looked at the boy in confusion, who continued to complain and apologize in a low voice. For some reason, she felt great sadness for him. Then, she felt her son slip from her hand. She quickly turned around and saw how the little boy slipped, dropping the toy on the street. Everything went in slow motion. From that moment the woman quickly ran to her son, who looked scared at a car that was rapidly approaching. Then only a loud bang and some screams were heard. People began to surround the place while asking for help. The woman, who was lying on the ground while tightly hugging her son who was fainted, only looked weakly at the green-haired young man who continued with his gaze lowered. Izuku. I'm so sorry, the woman noticed how he opened his eyes, revealing silver orbs that conveyed a lot of peace. And so the woman left this world. No matter what, everyone has an end, be it soon or 100 years from now, everyone leaves in the end. Denki. Kirishima. Everyone saw how the Redeed began to scream while crying and hitting the ground hard. Kirishima. Damn. Damn. He stood up and grabbed Izuku by the neck, alarming several people. Why did you do that? Why did you do that to him? He shouted angrily while many tears ran down his cheeks. Bakugo. Stop it, you damn spiky hair. Even if he wants you to beat him up, calm down, damn it. He shouted, trying to get him away, along with Denki and Shoto. Hiroshima. Of course. Since it's not your mother you just saw die, then you're asking me to calm down. Hey. he screams, leaving everyone surprised. Mina. His mom. She looked at the screen and saw the unconscious child in amazement. Izuku. I'm really sorry, he said walking towards the woman's body and bending down to see the child. I hope you can forgive me someday little Ijiro, he said caressing the child's black hair while the paramedics took them away without noticing their presence. Legend has it that no one can see the god of death and those who can see one means their time. All. God of death. They shouted in surprise. Inko. Is my son a Shinigami? She said scared and worried. Shadow. That's right, but it's not his fault for being like that so calm down, he said looking seriously at Kirishima who left Izuku and just sat looking at the floor. Izuku. Kirishima-kun I'm sorry for doing that. I'm sorry for hurting your mom. Izuku shouted, surprising Kirishima, who only felt bad. Mina. Guys, said sadly watching Kirishima hug Izuku. Everyone else just watched a screen wanting to understand that universe more. Nezu. The god of death, said looking at the green-haired boy. The green-haired man can be seen walking with a tired look until he reaches a building. He stares at the name of the place with regret and then slowly enters. Mirio. I think we should go in now guys. Come on, he said with a box in his hands while Bugle Girl and Bakugo followed him, who had a bored look. They began to walk in silence until they reached a door and very stealthily they entered, seeing a green-haired man with glasses finishing signing some papers. Sir Nigthai. Hey. Mirio. What's wrong? He asked with a serious face while Mirio had a smile which opened a box revealing a cake. Mirio, Bugle Girl. Happy birthday sir. They said happily while Bakugo had a serious look and opened a container which released a lot of confetti. All this was seen by a younger green-haired man who just watched everything sitting in a corner without anyone noticing. Izuku. I wonder what it would be like if I had a birthday, he said with a smile watching as Mirio threw the cake in Sir's face, scaring Bugle Girl and Bakugo, while Mirio smiled. But then I remember. What I am. And why I'm here. Mirio. No. Screams in horror as he sees his master being impaled by spikes made of rock. The whole place was shaking as the heroes finished defeating the Yakusas and Bakugo ran away with Eri on his back. My reason for existing. Mirio. Master. He shouted with Sir Nighteye in his arms who was dying. Sir. Never forget your smile Mirio remember it please, he said with a smile while blood came out of his wounds. Izuku. The only reason this body exists, said walking to where Mirio was. Sir Nighteye, who is he thought, looking at the silver eyes of the green-haired man who had a sad look. Izuku. To take the souls to the other world, no matter which one it is, he said, touching the forehead of the older green-haired man, who only gave one last breath leaving Mirio devastated. That's why I'm here, right? So why? Because I feel this way. Everyone looked at the screen in surprise, not knowing what to say, while the green-haired man was apologizing to Sir Nighteye and Mirio over and over again under the gaze of the others. Hoda. Why? Why is Mr. Izuku a Shinigami? He asked with his eyes lowered. Everyone looked at Shadow waiting for his answer, but he just sighed. Shadow. Someone has to take the souls to the other world, if not they would be trapped in limbo and would be lost in the void forever. The gods of death in that world are not bad. Kirishima sees him without understanding. Kirishima your mother died when you were just a child wasn't that right? Everyone saw Kirishima who had his gaze lowered. Kirishima. That's right just from what my father told me she died of an illness, but even so he said sadly, seeing her it upset me that's all, he said while Mina hugged him. Enki. So that means that the gods of death exist so that the kind souls, when their time comes to depart, are in charge of taking them to paradise and thus avoiding them from ending up in limbo, right? Everyone looked in amazement at Denki, who had a calm look. Babara. That means they are angels of God who seek to bring souls to their homes so they can rest, she said while joining her hands and smiling while looking at the green-haired man who had Sir Nighteye ruffling his hair. Shadow. In that world, exactly that but Izuku doesn't like to do that it fills him with pain to take the souls from that world. Everyone understood the green-haired man from that world more. Kirishima. So my mother is in that world her time had come? He said with his eyes lowered. Shadow. That's right if he didn't die he would still die at some point I'm sorry, but it couldn't be avoided, he said looking at the screen. My dream was always to be like them to live to grow to die. At least they are able to feel the world to live their lives with great enthusiasm or with great pain. But still this world. Recovery girl. I'm sorry but there's nothing else that can be done, she said sighing as she walked away from a blonde who was devastated while crying. Mirio. Why? Why does the world have to be like this? He screamed while crying, looking at a window where a little white-haired girl was lying on a stretcher. It's bucking cruel. Najire. Mirio tell me it's a lie, she said crying in front of the blonde who was sitting on a bench outside the hospital. Tamaki just stood silently looking at his friend with a sad face. Mirio. The doctors already confirmed it, what the Yakuza's did to her affected her too much, recovery girl said, she said. He just clenched his fists while keeping his gaze down, and many tears came out of his eyes and fell on the ground. And there's nothing you can do to change that. Miri. Where am I? Suddenly I hear a sigh, so I try to move with great effort to see a green-haired man sitting in a chair with his gaze lowered while speaking in a low voice. They both saw each other in an instant. The girl, for some reason, did not feel fear or any negative emotion, while the green-haired man looked at her with sadness. Izuku. Oh, hello. He nervously greets the little girl who only saw him with curiosity. Miri, who are you, sir? I asked, still surprised by his presence. Silence gathered as the green-haired man tried to think of something only to say the first thing that came to mind. Izuku. I'm just someone who has been waiting for a long time to stop suffering. The little girl felt a deep sadness over him. Miri. You too, I whisper in a low voice as small tears threatened to fall. To her surprise, the green-haired man was giving her a hug, leaving her surprised, and instead of being scared, she felt very calm and peaceful, so she returned the hug while hiding her face in his chest and crying. All that could be heard were the sobs of a little girl who had lost everything in this world. His family. His childhood. His life. Izuku. You know, I always questioned my existence. The little girl stopped crying but kept clinging to him. My reason for existing, why I'm here, and why I do what I do. He let go to sit on the stretcher and look out the window. I've always had doubts about whether it's the right thing to do. He saw her and noticed the bandages on her arms. But I know this world is very cruel, and in the end, everyone wants to stop feeling pain, sadness, fear. The little girl only saw two birds flying out the window. Just like him. Miri. I would like to be happy, she said while looking at the sky through the window. I really want to know what it feels like not to have nightmares, not to feel this pain in my chest, she said sadly while touching where her heart was, not to feel so alone, so lost, abandoned, she said, crying to feel a hand wipe her tears. Izuku. Don't worry, I assure you that you will be happy like you've never been, he said with a smile as he slowly opened his eyes and white wings came out of his back. No one will ever hurt you again, little fairy. Izuku. Now I understand, he said on top of a building looking at the cemetery where the funeral of the hero Sir Night-Eye and a little girl who could not bear the pain anymore was taking place. I know that not everything has to be bad, not everything has to be suffering. Maybe they are no longer in this world, but they will always be in the hearts of those who loved and appreciated them. He smiled, opening his silver eyes as the sun came out from between the clouds and the rain stopped, revealing a rainbow. Izuku. Well, it's time to go, he said, looking at a green-haired man with glasses and a white-haired girl who had a big smile of happiness. So don't be sad even if that person you cared about is no longer here. Mirio could be seen gathering some things, but stopped when he saw a picture of him and his teacher smiling. They won't really go away, not if the memories live on in your mind and heart. Never forget it. Everyone was silent, not knowing what to say. Well, they only heard the cries of some people. Shadow. Hey, Kirishima just stared at him blankly. I hope this gives you some closure. Not everyone has this opportunity. Everyone was surprised when a light appeared and took shape, leaving Kirishima speechless. Kirishima. I see that my little one has become a real man. A black-haired woman laughs with a shark-like smile in a warm manner. Everyone fell silent as they watched the Redeed slowly begin to walk while breaking down in tears, seen by everyone. Kirishima. Poor thing, you're still my little knight, aren't you? He said while hugging him and smiling calmly. Everyone watched as the manliest boy cried as he hugged his mother, as if she was going to be taken away from him again, which was true. Shadow. Well, that's all for today. He just left them both hugging and then slowly left without being noticed by anyone. Shadow. Didn't you expect me to update? Well, you're just wondering, or maybe not, why I disappeared. The truth is, I have my reasons, but I'm here, so I'll try not to disappoint you as much as I have. See you later, and thanks for all the support. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.